Mr. Ashton?
Have we finished eliciting the opinion from the witness? Because it seemed like we stopped. Obviously, he's not qualified to talk about phenolphthalein tests. We've already heard from an experienced serologist about that. So clearly he's not qualified to testify, and that's not in his deposition. But is there any other opinion counsel's going to elicit? Because, I'm sorry, I'll wait. Counsel's busy texting. So. Is there another opinion?
Folks, I don't know how many times, and I'm not going to say this ever again.
So certain protocols that apply to non-skeletonized remains don't apply to skeletonized remains because you can see what's in there because everything else is gone. Correct?
No. You mean you can look inside the head without opening it?
Yeah.
Well, you have to show me how to do that.
There's a little hole right in the bottom.
I'm sorry?
Isn't there a little hole right in the bottom?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I'm sorry. I'll withdraw the question. Now,
the leaf litter that was obvious in that picture certainly is equivalent to that.
did you measure the leaf litter in any of these areas of accumulation?
No.
Now,
Did anyone else do that?
neat thing about this is you don't get to ask me questions. But that's okay. That's okay. Now,
You provoked it. A shoddy autopsy, because if the head is not opened, what else wasn't examined?
sorry, I apologize. I didn't mean to provoke you.
Yeah, it is. It upsets my better knowledge, my better understanding of my profession.
The skull was in...
I'm sorry, a bone, a hip bone, was buried in 4 inches of what is referred to as muck, which I assume is wet. I assume you would call wet humus. Wouldn't that indicate pretty conclusively that this skull had been there a whole lot longer than 2 weeks?
Or a dog buried it.
I'm sorry, a dog buried
They
it.
do, as do coyotes. I don't know if you have those here.
No, we're not blessed with coyotes. But we have a lot of other things. Thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Logan, your laboratory couldn't do this test if you wanted to, could you?
Which test?
The test of the carpet samples in this case. Your laboratory doesn't do that type of test, does it?
We would be capable of doing that test.
All right. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 114 in evidence, State's Exhibit 143 in evidence, State's Exhibit 322 in evidence, State's Exhibit 323 in evidence. Have you ever seen any of those?
No.
If you had been sent one of those, could you have tested it? But do you recall from the report of the autopsy and the forensic anthropologist that when it was found, the mandible was in virtually its anatomical position?
Right.
So this person would have had to take the jaw, put it back in anatomical position. Correct?
Yes.
He then would have had to have taken a piece of duct tape and placed it around the bone itself.
On one side.
Well, do you recall from your readings that the duct tape is on both sides?
The pictures don't show it like that.
I'm sorry, I just don't even know how to deal with this. You know, I am accustomed to having a reliance on lawyers saying things and meaning what they say. Here's another point. If you're trying to attach the mandible to the skull, you would have to do it on both sides, correct? If your theory is correct.
Well, that, you know...
What was its condition?
I have no knowledge of that, sir.
So you don't know if it was in the trunk, whether it was wet or dry, do you?
I do not.
But assuming, for the sake of this hypothetical, that nothing was added to the bag between the time it was in the trunk and the time it was obtained by law enforcement, we do know that there was no food in the bag. Correct? Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
So when something gets wet, non-food items don't all of a sudden become food, do they?
Unless you're talking about dehydrated food, I don't believe they do.
So whether it's wet or dry, it's still not food. Correct?
Not as I understand the definition of food.
Right. Okay. So this person would have taken this skull for whatever reason and cut 3 pieces of duct tape and wrapped it around the skull, actually putting the adhesive on the skull itself. This is your theory, correct?
Yes.
Why is there no glue residue on the skull?
Why would there be residue on bone?
You do realize that the duct tape was not actually stuck to the bone when it was found. You do realize that.
I realize that, yes.
Why?
That's why it was...
Why isn't the duct tape, under your theory, still stuck to the bone?
It's not stuck to the bone.
So we can assume that none of your studies involved a child wrapped in a blanket, stuffed in 2 garbage bags, and stuffed in a laundry bag. None of the studies involved any of those, did they?
I think that is a fair assumption, yes.
Why didn't you wrap your pigs in a blanket? I promised I'd say that, Judge. But seriously, why didn't you wrap your pigs in a blanket?
Thank you for saying that.
That's okay. We needed it right now. Okay, do it. Okay.
So if this person removed the skull, attached the mandible to it, and put 3 pieces of duct tape on it, and then set it back where it was, is that your theory?
Or take it with him and then bring it back and put it back to where it was. Or take it to where he or she wants to put the duct tape and then bring it back and put it back in the place.
Then why is the hair the only thing that's stuck to the tape?
But the hair would stick to the tape.
But you said that the tape was put on after the skull was removed. So how can the hair be stuck to the tape?
I don't know how
Mr. Ashton, in reply.
This was handwritten by Ms. Sims, not by me. I didn't insert anything into it. And it was signed by Mr. Baez. And it is clear that it's clear.
Well, let me do this.
Record discussion outside as a courtesy so that the witness would not end up losing his job over this. Any implication in counsel's comment that I contacted them is absolutely 100% false.
There's also more to the story here, Judge.
And then this person who picked up the skull, attached the mandible, attached 3 pieces of duct tape, put it back, then had to drape strands of the hair over the skull. Is that your theory?
Would you say that again? Because
Sure.
I don't understand.
I don't know how else to respond. We relied on the fact that this hearing, the Friday hearing, would be about this issue. This is what we prepared for. And now, once again, we are told that, oh, well, we didn't really mean what we said. Stupid you. You trusted us. I'm sorry. I apologize for getting emotional. It's just this is a... are you aware of any... You're aware of this book, correct?
Yes, somewhat, yes.
Well, you
mean,
edited it and wrote some of it.
Exactly.
The point is, the facts are not before the court. The court needs to simply inform the jury that the witness is withdrawn, which is factually and legally accurate, and the jury should give no regard to his testimony and leave it at that. If counsel wants to file something under oath, bring it on.
We will.